Good morning, lovely friends. How are you all today? I do hope you're well. I'm coming to you from yet another rainy day in London. It's like a broken record at the moment, isn't it? Never mind, there's loads of stuff to be getting on with indoors. Of course, I prefer to be in the garden. I'm not even going to tell you how the leaf gathering is going. Well, I will. It's not. Anyway, the point is there's loads of things to get on with indoors. And one of the things I'm going to just quickly do this morning is play with, can you see what it is? No, it's not my hair left over from my haircut, goodness me no, it's the corn silks. So if you remember when I was shucking the flint corn, I was taking off the silks because I had no idea before Anne and Molly got in touch with me, but you can use them to make tea, that they have some good medicinal properties. So I thought, ooh, fantastic. So when I was shucking them, I was just setting the silks aside to dry, which they have done now. And in the meantime, I did a little bit of my own looking up. I'm going to bring you around here a bit so I'm not straining so much. I did a bit of my own looking up. Obviously, Anne and Molly had told me various uses, but I always like to do my own research anyway. So just before I go on to do anything with them, I just want to say a couple of words about using herbs, specifically about using herbs medicinally. I've got a really lovely bunch of books on herbs. This one is one of my favourites. It's called The Complete Book of Herbs, A Practical Guide to Growing and Using by Leslie Bremnes. I've had this book for donkey's years. I couldn't remember how long, so I looked in the front. 1988, my goodness. This is a nice kind of grab it off the shelf, not too many details but fairly comprehensive in terms of coverage of herbs. So nice chunky book. About half of it, the latter half, is sort of on uses and doing things with them. But the first half, it's lovely. It's each page, let me see if I can show you, each page is sort of a monograph for each of the herbs. Yeah, it's just really simple and easy. Okay, so for example, on this page with feverfew, there's a little column down this side which gives brief notes on cultivation, fantastic, including harvesting, when's best to harvest. And then there's a whole list of uses. Again, it's just really, really brief, but it will give uses, for instance, for decorative, culinary, household, like cleaning, cosmetic, medicinal, what have you. So it's a really nice kind of overview book. But what I would say about using herbs in general, using herbs specifically for medicinal, is you need to do your research. You have to take some responsibility. So that book doesn't have nearly enough detail, but it's a good starting point. And probably what's best if you do want to use a herb medicinally is speak to a qualified herbalist. Excuse me, I've woken up with the beginnings of a cold today. But also, and this is really, really, really important, if you are already taking any drugs, prescribed drugs for any condition, you must speak with your doctor. It's probably, I would say, it's possibly even in 100% of cases, it is not a good idea to be using herbs as medicine alongside with a prescribed medicine. Two reasons. One, that herb may interact and either undermine the prescribed drug you're taking, or it might interact with it to cause all sorts of horrible side effects, problems. But also you might be ending up basically giving yourself sort of almost like a double dose. So I'm lucky, I don't take any prescribed drugs. I take some soluble paracetamol for my knees. I can't take tablets, I have to have it soluble for my knees. If it's really bad, if it's quite often at bedtime, I'll have a paracetamol codeine mix. But generally, when I'm using my herbs medicinally, I'm starting from a place where I'm generally fairly healthy to start with. I'm not using anything where I'm relying on it to be a bit of a lifesaver. A really good example, for example, of knowing what you're doing is from doing my research on the corn silk. They do contain high levels of vitamin K. Now, we all need vitamin K. We get it also in our dark green leafy vegetables. The last thing you want to do is be taking vitamin K and warfarin, the blood thinner, at the same time. So that's what I mean about if you're on prescribed drugs, don't be starting to just chuck any old herbs into your body, because this is the wonderful thing about herbs, is they can have a really strong effect on us, and that's great that we can access that. But on the other hand, we don't want to just be doing it willy-nilly without actually knowing what we're doing. So yes, please make sure you consult with your doctor, a herbalist. You have to know about, for example, another example with the corn silk is it can lower blood potassium. So if you already struggle with a low blood potassium, you absolutely should not be using corn silk tea or anything else that lowers your blood potassium. It's one of those things where I would say don't go and trouble your doctor and the NHS to have a complete blood screen done, unless of course you're poorly. If, like me, you're generally healthy, apart from rubbish joints and migraines, but if you're generally healthy, yes, certainly go private and have a complete blood screen done so you know exactly where you're at in terms of, how you're doing with your vitamins, your sodium, potassium levels, all that sort of thing. Anyway, have I made the point? I hope I've made the point that just because a plant is natural and we think, oh, look at the cobs growing, isn't that lovely? Oh, I'll just use that as a herbal tea, la la la. Oh my goodness, I've just lowered my blood potassium, which can be very dangerous for your heart. So yes, enjoy herbs, use them, make the most of them, but take responsibility for checking everything out beforehand. Right, so back to the gorgeous corn silk. Now, I don't have a huge amount of it, as you can see. What I'm going to do this morning, I'm going to do two things. Firstly, I'm going to start off, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea from this to see if I even like it. So let's get the kettle on and let's brew up some corn silk tea. Okay, kettle boiled. So I'm just going to use a little palmful. Pop you in there. Not a huge amount of water, I only want 1 cupful. Now, just leave that to steep for, at least 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and pour and taste. Now for the taste test. I've got to say, as I was mentioning when I was doing the mushrooms the other day, I always smell things, and I took the lid off the teapot to have a sniff. It didn't smell too dissimilar to the hot straw, I have to say. Here goes. Hardly any taste to it. Cheers, by the way. Yeah, really very little taste at all. there's a slight hint of that sort of warm straw or grass. Very, very subtle. Anyway, I shall enjoy the rest of this pot in a moment, because just now I'm going to do something else with the corn. What I forgot to mention earlier are what this corn silk is supposed to be good for. Mainly it's good for bladder health, the whole urinary tract health. So if you're prone to bladder infections, urinary tract infections, that sort of thing, it looks like it could be a useful thing for you to do. It's also supposed to be, although I couldn't find any research that wasn't sort of apocryphal, or sorry, not apocryphal, what am I trying to say? I couldn't find any medical papers. This was all sort of individuals and herbalists talking about it. So that's what I mean about just be careful with your herbs. But it's also supposed to be good for diabetes, for lowering high blood pressure, for lowering cholesterol. So I think it's one of those things where if your blood pressure is raging out of control, you need to see a doctor. You need to get that under control however you do it. But if your blood pressure is, mine is on the high side of normal. So I think to myself, well, this might be useful for me. Mine's not high enough for me to need to take drugs for it, but there we go. Anyway, so all sorts of uses, but the reason I'm trying it is because I have been told that it's really good for inflammation. Now, the problem is, I don't have very much of the silk, because I've just got them over here. They're now in a little bundle. I don't have very much of it. So, I mean, that would make, probably that's going to do maybe 20 cups of tea, possibly less. So instead of using it as a tea, I'm going to make a tincture of it today. Well, I'm going to start the tincture. So tinctures are really, really useful ways of both taking your herbs, but also of preserving them. To make this tincture, I'm going to use alcohol. So you need to have a grain alcohol that's at least 60% proof. So today I've got myself some vodka. It felt so weird buying it because I do not drink spirits or hard liquor, as you might call it over in the States. So basically I just went for the cheapest I could find. This is like a supermarket owned one. Now, obviously alcohol to make your tincture is not going to be useful for everybody or suitable for everybody. So for instance, if you want to use a tincture that you're going to give to a child, I mean, I will be taking about half a teaspoon of this a day, so it's a tiny amount of alcohol, but you'd still maybe feel that's not something you want to give a child. Certainly, if you're recovering from alcoholism, if you've got liver issues, you don't want to be using vodka. Instead, you could use apple cider vinegar. I won't, because, hang on, I'm going to just have another sip. No, I think I'm going to prefer it in the alcohol. It's that slightly wet straw taste, and I don't know if it's because it's so soon after having done the mushrooms, but I think I've just got an aversion to wet straw now. Anyway, yes, you could use apple cider vinegar to make your tincture. I don't, because I'm not a huge fan of vinegar unless it's on my chips by the sea, or unless it's on my olives or capers. So let's get our bits and pieces together and get this tincture underway. I just love to say the word tincture. It's like a tisane of herbs, or a tincture of herbs. Lovely. Well, it really couldn't be any more simple. I've got myself a jar. Now at this time of year I get really, really short of jars because I've been doing so much sort of drying and bottling. Basically all my jars are in use. So this is a £1 jar. I could probably have done with a £2 jar, but literally this is all I've got, so this will do. I'm going to pop all my lovely silks in there. So this is very similar to when we do the cold maceration of the calendula petals in the sweet almond oil for skincare products. The idea with both of these ways, here goes the alcohol. Does vodka have a smell? Oh no, oh, it just smells clean. It smells like something I might clean a wound with. By the way, surgical alcohol would not do. Yeah, so it works, both work in exactly the same way, whether it's oil for the body preps or alcohol for making my tincture. The good bits, the goodness from the herbs, the flowers, the petals, whatever, is being drawn out and drawn into that liquid, so that all its wonderful properties will later on be contained in the liquid. And now all I will do is place that somewhere cool and shady for the next 4 weeks or so. I will give it a bit of a, oops, not right with the tray. I will give it a bit of an agitation every day, and then after about 4 weeks or so I'll just strain it off through a muslin cloth, bottle it in a dark bottle, and that should actually keep, it will keep way longer than before it runs out, if that makes sense. The alcohol is going to keep it for at least a year, and then all I'll do quite simply is take a dose in the mornings, like I say, about half a teaspoonful. Now, because it is, one of the things I didn't mention is I wouldn't take it at bedtime, because it can act as a diuretic as well. I don't want to wet the bed, quite simply. So, yes, that's all there is to it. So, I'm going to enjoy my second cup of it. Before I say, do you know what, I'm not going to enjoy my second cup. I'm going to drink it, but yeah, I think I'm going to be happier with the tincture than the tea. It's definitely got a taste which I'm associating now with that horrid wet straw. But try it yourself. Try it yourself. You may enjoy it. Or the other thing is, of course, you could put a little bit of honey in there. For me, it's not a question of the sweetness. I've never ever needed to add honey to any drinks. I like some quite bitter ones, so raspberry leaf, nettle. They're all quite bitter herbal tisanes. Oh, excuse me. But so I've never bothered adding honey. But try it yourself. Have the first cup without, and if you think, oh no, I need a little bit of something to help me take my medicine, spoonful of sugar and all that. But yeah, I'm certainly glad I've tried the tea. Maybe the way to do it is to not sniff as I drink. Put it this way, I'm not going to be brewing up a pot of that in the afternoon as I'm working, like I would say with my peppermint and my chamomile, which are my two absolutely most favourite adored teas ever. But yeah, look, I've given it a go, fabulous. The tincture needs to be put away now for the next 4 weeks. What I will do is I will take it regularly. I don't plan to make any other changes in my diet over the period when I'm going to be taking this. So it will be interesting to note, do I feel any improvement where I've got all this inflammation in my various joints? We'll see. Put it this way, if I don't try, I won't know. So I'm going to give it a try. Right. You lot need to scarper because I need to put the kettle back on and make a pot of peppermint tea. See you all again really soon, I hope. But in the meantime, please stay well, look after yourselves. Bye for now.